Mr. President, allow me to take a moment of the Senate's time to say thank you and farewell to an exceptional person. Ed Greelegs was my chief of staff for 17 years, and he was a wise and trusted friend. I was not unique in that regard. Ed had thousands of friends. I used to marvel walking through the hallway in the Capitol with Ed Greelegs. He knew everybody, and everybody knew him. Not just the members of Congress and their staff, cafeteria workers, carpenters, Capitol police officers, and certainly senators, congressmen, and their staff. He was a beloved member of the Senate community. And what a smart fellow he was. During my first 10 years in the Senate, when Ed was my chief of staff, he was an unfailing source of wise and thoughtful advice. Some people are drawn to Congress because of what they think are the perks and power that come with this job. That's not what attracted Ed Greelegs. For Ed, being a good public servant was always a privilege. He avoided the spotlight. He was there to help people and to help move America closer to that more perfect union our founders dreamed of. 15 years ago, Ed was diagnosed with early onset Parkinson's. He and his wife, Susan, faced that formidable challenge the same way they faced everything, together with love, determination, courage, and a good sense of humor. Sadly, yesterday, Ed's battle with Parkinson's ended, and he passed away at the age of 66. Parkinson's disease is a bitter adversary. Over the years, it took away Ed's sure-footedness. It nearly killed him twice. In the end, it robbed him of many memories. I can recall speaking to him a few months back, and Susan had warned me that he didn't have much of a memory. She said, unless you want to talk about politics. So I called him, and we talked about politics, even the politics of the day, and he was spot on. He always was. But regardless of the loss of memory, it never took away Ed's dignity, his kindness, or his respect for others. Ed worked for so many members of Congress from Illinois that I think he became an honorary son of our state. He grew up in Washington, D.C., in a suburb of Wheaton, Maryland, graduated from the University of Maryland. Came to the Capitol as an intern in 1970. Before he joined my staff, he worked for Congressman Marty Russo of Illinois, Congressman Bob Eckert of Texas on the House Commerce Committee, Congressman Sam Gadenson of Connecticut, and finally Congressman Marty Russo. He also worked briefly for the Consumer Federation of America and for Fannie Mae. Well, in 1990, I persuaded him to come to work for me as my chief of staff in the House. 6 years later, when I went to run for the Senate, he was right by my side. And he was there for me 8 years later when I became whip. His quiet, wry sense of humor helped to lighten the mood when things got tense, and his profound compassion and decency reminded all of us why we were really there. There were a couple of things that Ed loved more than public service. One was books. Ed's desk and his bedside were always surrounded by mountains of books. More than reading, Ed loved his family, especially his dear wife, Susan, his stepchildren, Andrew and Amanda. I have 1,000 Ed Greelegs stories. I'm going to close with my favorite. The year was 2002. I was on a Codell with then Majority Leader Tom Daschle to Afghanistan with a handful of senators. We were the first group of senators to land in Afghanistan after the war broke out in daylight. The security was incredible. This trip to Afghanistan was the first since the fall of the Taliban. No one knew who was friend or foe on the ground. So when we landed at Bagram Air Force Base in Kabul, it was really tense. As the back end of the plane ramp went down onto the runway and we were brought off, we were surrounded by armored personnel carriers and men holding rifles. These armored personnel carriers were as far as the eye could see, and the armed troops as well. As I came down the ramp, a man in civilian clothes walked up to me and said, "Are you Senator Durbin?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And he said, "Well, I'm a personal friend of Ed Greelegs." I couldn't believe it. In the middle of a war zone, and here was another friend of Ed Greelegs. On behalf of friends of Ed everywhere, I want to say thank you, my friend. You made this Congress and this country better with your caring and dedication. We will all miss you. Mr. President, I yield the floor.